Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Lead Gen Secret webinar. The title of this session is The Budget Blueprint: What are the smartest bets for home builders in 2026? A bit of a treat today. We've got a fantastic panel. We're joined by Melissa Cervin from Lombardo Homes, Ali Price of Fischer Homes, and Jaime Godwin. I'm Nick Chitty. I'm VP of Sales at CommvVersion. I think today's going to be a really good session. We've got a lot of topics, a lot of questions have already come in from the audience of pre-registration. But before we dig into any further, I'm going to go around the room and ask you guys to give a little bit more about you and your position, your experience, starting with Melissa, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, everybody. I am my name is Melissa. I am the Vice President of Marketing for Lombardo Homes. We have divisions in both Michigan and Missouri. We do about 650 homes a year, and we dabble in both the production and custom homes.
Awesome. I'm going to go left to right. Jaime, you're next, please.
Hello, I'm Jaime Godwin. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications for Kolter Homes. We focus mostly in the 55 plus active adult space, and we build homes throughout Florida, in Georgia, and in the Carolinas.
Perfect. And last but by no means least, Ali.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ali Price, and I'm the marketing technologist at Fischer Homes. I've been with Fischer for a little over 2.5 years, and my role focuses on optimization and making sure our marketing ecosystem is speaking to each other. Fischer Homes builds across the Midwest and Southeast, and we offer everything from paired villas and townhomes to luxury custom homes, and we close roughly 3,500 homes every year.
Awesome. So I think we've got a fantastic panel, some great speakers, great experience, but also we've got a bit of a variety in terms of the product and the markets that we're working in. So I think for the basis of today's conversation, that's going to be insightful for the audience. Before we dig into some of the questions and some of the themes for today's session, I wanted to give a bit of background, a bit more of a holistic overview of the industry in 2025 and what the predictions are for 2026. We know it's been a challenging year, and we're speaking with partners throughout the last 12 months. I think the best summary I can provide of the market is indecision. It's not that we've lost complete interest. It's not that we've lost complete demand, of course. But I think with some of the instability going on, we're not seeing the same decisiveness from potential new home buyers, which is reflected in some of the trends that we observed from a website and then also from a kind of after perspective. Echoed in the thought, so we've seen a retraction in new home sales this year, around 2%. Probably rings true for a lot of the guys in the audience, but the optimistic side of me, Zillow have announced and backed up by a fair few others that we are expecting a growth of 5% in 2026. So I think there's cautious optimism as we look ahead. And again, timely in the sense that January is a new start, a fresh start, typically some of our busiest periods in the space. So interesting to get the thoughts of the panel today in terms of how we can capitalize on that potential increase in demand and also optimize our current strategy. So I think the question for today, the overall question, is how do we balance current market conditions with planning for the future? So how do we optimize current process and also navigate that potential pushbacks internally in terms of budget constraints or process changes that we historically become accustomed to, but really conveying what's going to be the most impactful for us as marketers and for our brand. So I'm going to launch straight into some tricky questions potentially, and we're going to break it up into two segments. So I think the first segment makes sense to reflect on some of our observations from 2025, and then looking ahead to 2026, some forecasts from you guys, some projections, and maybe a sneak peek into your activity. So I'm going to start with a fairly open question, and Melissa, so I'm going to pick on you again. But I'm going to start with, are there any changes you observed to buyer behavior in the last 12 to 18 months from your perspective?
I think our buyers today are doing so much more research before we ever have the opportunity to talk to them. I've actually just in the last 6 months or so started speaking a little bit differently with my sales team to try to drive that point home. You know, we've had this conversation for years and years and years about walk-in traffic, and walk-in traffic for all of us is the first time we're seeing that buyer and we're putting a name to that buyer. But, you know, the conversation I've had with my sales team is when we finally get walk-in traffic, that is probably our buyers. It might be their 32nd time visiting with us or 45th time visiting with us. So while it's a new client to us, we are by no means new to them. By the time they're walking through the door, that isn't the traditional sense of a walk-in where, you know, what it was 10 years ago when they were walking in to get information. They already know the price point. They already know the floor plan they want. They have a home site picked out. They have timing expectations because they've been doing all of this research on our digital tools on our website, and obviously even using AI to kind of help them compare and contrast and start setting expectations. So we're dealing with a fairly educated, buyer in this day and age. There's almost all information available to them, and then if the information isn't available, as a builder, you have to be concerned about being illuminated. So just the level of information our buyers have on us before we ever even get the opportunity to truly engage with them.
That's an interesting point. I think one question I'd ask is, how are you tracking the attribution to actually converting them as a lead? Because you've got all of these touch points over an extended period of time. What are we crediting to the success of actually bringing them through the door? Because that must be a really difficult thing to
That's actually really hard. And Jamie and Allie, I would love for either one of you to jump in, because kind of one of the sticking points is typically a lot of times the last sticking point is what it gets attributed to. If the actual touch point came in because they did a lead through Zillow, then oftentimes that, we'll end up showing that as a Zillow lead. But there are more and more products that help you once that lead is no longer anonymous. You can kind of go back in their journey and see that they actually engaged with you for the first time 10 months ago, and you can see when they were on your website. But fundamentally speaking, most of us right now it's the last touch point or whatever brought them in as a physical lead is what's getting the credit on a lot of our reporting. Allie and Jamie, would you agree?
I would agree that's true for most of our reporting. I tend to dive a little bit deeper and take a look at which source is attributed to the next conversion. So which source brought them to set an appointment with us online, or which elite source set their conversion to call us, and which one set the conversion to actually write an agreement with us.
I agree with that. It's almost two sources. You're looking at your web activity and GA4 reporting, but then you're also looking at your website activity in terms of the individual calls to action that take place. But as Melissa said, looking at that multi-touch point to see from your offline CRM data, if you're able to pass that back into tools to help you align first visits with specific channels, that's going to give you a lot more insight into what digital channels are bringing in higher intent users and traffic and visits.
I guess I don't want to dig into the minutiae here of this one point, but I'm finding it quite interesting because thinking about attribution, and specifically if we're looking from a reporting perspective to senior team members, whoever it might be, if we've got multiple touch points that are all contributing to that journey, how then do we maybe ascertain what the ROI is from a particular campaign? Because if we're relaunching a paid social campaign that will re-engage someone, we can't necessarily count it as a lead, so we can't equate a lead value to it, but it still has enormous benefit from that journey. So that again must be difficult for you guys to be able to when you're looking at your figures to actually present what's working and what's not, I'd imagine.
I think that it's important to track revenue adjacent behavior. And as an example, traditionally you look at what's bringing in the most impressions, what's bringing in the most leads, but you have to look closer because certain behaviors like time on site and revisit rate and content that they're viewing, if they're viewing lifestyle and location content pages for those sources, that's going to be a better indicator of driving higher intent traffic versus just pure volume.
I think that makes complete sense. And I guess tying it back to the original question that I proposed, from your perspective, Jamie, then a different demographic, our active community, active lifestyle, 55 plus typically. Do you echo the same thoughts from Melissa in terms of that research buyer that we're seeing? And I know yesterday we candidly spoke about people with demographic not having smartphones but access to the website. I know quick to dismiss that, but maybe you could give the audience a bit of a of what you see.
So I'm active adult buyers. They are young boomers and Gen Xers at this point, and they have had smartphones in their pockets for almost 20 years. And they're researching heavily on mobile. We're seeing that. I mean, as an industry, we're seeing that, and active adult is the same. We have more people with mobile engagement, and then they're also responding. So mobile engagement is high, but the patience is low. So if your mobile environment isn't acting as it should, they're quick to leave, they're quick to rage click, and then you lose them. So I think that, your mobile environment has to be on point for active adult buyers. They're very teed up and researching everywhere.
So it frustrates me a lot whenever I look on a prospective partner's website on my phone, and then it's just completely out of sync from the desktop design. So it's such an obvious point, but I think potentially overlooked in terms of the formatting and the aesthetics and customer experience too. Ali, moving to your side, obviously you're encompassing a broader variety or demographic of buyers, and I think might be interesting for the audience to, if you could speak on some of the work you're doing to engage the younger buyers, the Gen X or whatever it might be. I lose track of which Gen A to Z we're on, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest difference that I've seen with the younger buyers in like the Gen Z or millennial category is how quickly they want information. So they want fast, very visual and mobile first experiences. And if they don't have it, they're going to drop off, especially if the website feels very clunky. So they prefer very interactive tools. They prefer short video content and guided navigation over long or complicated menus. They're not going to sit and read all of the copy about your communities. They're going to want to like see the videos of it, see the photos of it, and engage that way instead.
So on that, Ali, what would you say the biggest friction point for the online journey is? Is it just the access to information in real time, or is there something bigger at play here?
Yeah, I would say the biggest friction point for us is just not having real-time trustworthy information online. Buyers want immediate clarity, and when the website can't give it to them, they're going to go somewhere else.
Bingo.
And then Melissa, same. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
For the active adult buyer, we've noticed a trend in wanting hyper local info, and that's been a friction point for them. We're really great at telling them what DMA we're in. Like, sure, the community's in Charlotte, but yeah, where do I pick up a prescription? Where's the closest hospital? How many minutes to the airport? That's been a friction point because they're looking for it and not always finding it easily.
Makes sense. I'm sorry, I got distracted. We've got an interesting question that's coming on the side, which actually ties in quite nicely to one of my next questions. I was going to ask you guys what if you could pick one piece of data that every builder should be tracking on a weekly basis, what that would be. And then Jamie, I've got a specific question to you, which is we're seeing the same trends from our side, and then maybe you can ask this separately, but how are you defining the qualified lead in 2026? Has that definition evolved as part of that multi-touch cadence? But I think let's start with the question of if you could track one thing for this activity and this intent, what would it be? And then secondly, for that definition, we can probably open it up to the audience too.
For me, first visit driven from digital activity without relying on form fills. And it kind of goes back to what we were originally talking about, tracking the offline data from your CRM and pairing it with your digital engagement. that's what I would lean into. That's the only thing I could lean into.
I have to be honest here. I heard that from you guys on a roundtable at the Digital Marketing Summit a few months back from some of your team members, and I love that answer. That was my favorite answer. So that was slightly cheating of me. But Melissa, Ali, for you guys, what would be the
And I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to jump in really quickly, Ellie, because I think, Nick, I was sitting at the same table. He said it, and it was such a profound moment. It wasn't my answer before that, but since that, Jaime, that's your influence. So again, it seems like the easy way out here, but that was a really great roundtable session. I was glad I was able to be there with you guys. I would agree.
Ali, I'll put you on the spot now. We're all ganging up on you because we all like the same answer, copying from Jaime. But
I would say lead to appointment conversion by source. I think that this truly tells which channels are driving intent and where the funnel breaks down, which I would say is more useful than just merely counting leads and by leads by source.
Makes sense. And this ties in again. It's thematic. These questions are going very swimmingly. It's like they were kind of planned. But we're now we talked a little bit about the definition of the lead and how we're tracking that lead source and the attribution and these important factors. But now getting to that linchpin between that online experience to Jaime's answer to the question of in-person appointments, looking at the OSC side, if you had to rate your relationship from a marketing perspective with your online sales team members out of 10, what would they be at the moment? I mean, we can speak honestly. Not everyone's going to watch this, so don't worry. No one's going to feel too hurt before the holidays. But if you had to rate it out of 1 to 10, what would be? Melissa? I saw it smile, so
really, really honest and transparent. In a perfect world, I want to say that I'm like a 7, 8, or 9, but realistically, and we have a fantastic OSC. But I would say that relationship, we're probably a little bit lower, a 5 or 6. And it's not on her end. It's on our end at truly understanding the information. Like it's getting everyone to understand sort of the information that the OSC holds. Like our OSCs are the first people or the first person in our company to actually speak with the leads. So when you're opening a community and you have a VIP list, like your OSC is going to be the first one to understand if our expected buyer profile is really what we're getting, whether or not the pricing aligns. Like she's getting all of that feedback. She's getting the reactions. So that OSC should be a part of those grand opening conversations. We should be seeking our OSCs out to understand the buyer, because at that point, they are the ones that know more about the buyer than the rest of us. So our OSC is pretty fabulous at that, at obtaining the information. We have not been so great at bringing her into all of our processes. We're having these conversations. We realize that it's a miss that we have and that we're basically sitting on a wealth of information that we're not using the way we should be. Also, one of the challenges I have in my team, and I would love for Ailey, I think we specifically talked about previously that you can shed some light to this. I'm also working in a world where I have, some divisions that have an OSC and others that are still working without one. And that brings in a lot of additional challenges. It definitely makes the marketing world a lot harder. And in that world, I still feel like I'm operating in the world of kind of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, because I don't have things like lead to appointment convert. I don't have numbers and stats like that. So my leads get out there and then what happens to them, I don't always know. It's harder when you don't have an OSC. So that's a very real answer. It's not necessarily it's a real answer.
No. It's that's why we do these kind of things, right? It's having that open forum of discussion and hearing from others, because I'm sure we're not the only one with the same challenge in the audience, but hopefully then we can learn from others that may have managed to solve it or in part solve it. So Ali, I'm expecting you to have all the answers to that question, but maybe you can shed some light for Melissa on that.
Yeah, we have a really unique structure with our online sales team. We have 9 full-time associates and 2 are dedicated to a single division, while the other 7 operate as a centralized team supporting all of our other markets. And we've been testing the strategy for about 8 months, and it's been performing extremely well. The downside of it is like that centralized team. There's so many of them, and it's hard to keep track of where everything ends up after it's distributed across that team. But a centralized approach could be a solution for you, Melissa.
Yeah, I guess from Melissa, from your side with the centralized approaches, then bandwidth, I'm imagining, is the main challenge to taking that, or is it just the lack of specificity if we take a more general or centralized approach with the OSC?
Our conversations have been about doing a more centralized OSC. We have some traditional mindsets that we're working with that have been part of it.
Yeah. Jaime, what does that structure look like for you guys?
We have a centralized team as well. And I would say that the team is a 9 out of 10. They might disagree if they were rating me, but because just like Melissa said, we sometimes struggle with distilling the information down and giving it to them before other people hear about it. So it's definitely a challenge. But one of the benefits that we do have here is they have resources that they're using in the CRM, their templates, their scripts, and things like that. And they have a direct line to the people creating those templates, and they are very collaborative and open with those people. So if they need a template that talks about X, Y, and Z, they're comfortable with having those conversations and conceptualizing new communication strategies. And that feedback loop that they have is really great.
The reason I asked this question, or was interested to get into this question, is when we looked at the topic list, I think we mentioned around obviously budgets for next year, but then having a notion or an idea of what we've already committed to from a budget perspective, obviously given this time of year. So looking ahead, we're thinking about how we can improve on current situation. I think you mentioned the OSC initiative that you had was something that you were hoping to enhance for 2026. We have a couple of questions in the side we'll get onto. But I think with this, I'd be keen to understand, and maybe for Mrs. benefit, but open question, I guess, if there are any initiatives anyone's implemented to help with that feedback loop, closing that feedback loop to make it stronger, to make your lives easier, because you can understand what's working, what's effective, but also from the OSCs to feel more heard and potentially have a greater impact in terms of how close they are to the ground and to the potential buyers themselves. So that was a rabble question of basically asking if there are any initiatives you've implemented to help overcome the gap, that feedback loop gap.
Forced meetings.
Okay. Old school but effective.
We have done, we do bring, like I mentioned, our OSC comes into our community meetings now. So, and she's been talking to that VIP list. So we're able to share that information with everyone. But also, like Jaime said, sometimes we're not great as we're opening communities. When we're, from a marketing standpoint, doing some of our campaigns, you're starting to talk about these things, 60, 90 days before opening. And there's times where we have absolutely started advertising before, where our OSC called and said, hey, what? I got a call on this. So when, from my team, when we start advertising a community, our OSC is aware of all of those communications before and then as they happen. So we don't put her in that position again where she's without knowing the information when she's getting the calls before the public, because unfortunately we've done that once or twice.
When you have a centralized team as well, it's important to see how each individual community is converting and not just Kolter Homes as a brand. And it creates a great feedback loop for the marketing team, because if we initiate a certain campaign for one community and not the other because we're doing A/B testing, we will get feedback from the internet team in terms of the quality of traffic from a specific community. So an initiative that we implemented this year was a scorecard review, and part of that scorecard is reviewing the quality of traffic for each community.
And Ali, that must be super applicable to you because the breadth of products, but also markets and metro areas, having the centralized team, because I always feel that if, the success of an OSC can be contingent on the community that they're working on and the traffic that, whereas with a generalized, more general or central approach, potentially a more level playing field, potentially, I cautious to say. But Ali, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, we definitely have forced meetings. We have forced meetings every week to kind of connect with our online sales counselors and talk through like what kind of traffic they're getting. And we just get feedback from them. And we treat their input as gold because about 60% of our on-site traffic comes through our new Hub Advisor team or online sales team. So anytime that they have feedback, we act on it really quickly. So if they're seeing that we have a ton of like really bad traffic from a particular Facebook ad, we turn it off.
Well, tell us some more, doesn't it?
Really. Yeah. And I hope to get there someday. Like, I think that's incredible.
We've had a few questions around looking ahead, so I'm going to segue across and actually start with quite a punchy question that's been asked by the audience. And Josh says, guys, if your budget was cut by 20% tomorrow, this maybe is ringing a bit too close to home for some. What are the two things that you would refuse to cut? They've had caveated and said no prayer. So to recap, the question is, if your budget was cut by 20% tomorrow, what are the last two things you refuse to cut?
I would refuse to cut people costs and content creation costs.
So I'm going to still go ahead and sort of try to disperse as much as possible because there's a lot you don't necessarily want to give up. But for me, it's going to be anything associated with my interactive design tool on the website. That's been such a driver for us, and then just the overall experience for the customers. And then realistically, training, sales and OSC training.
I'm going to just talking from a digital marketing budget standpoint and ad spend, I would refuse to cut retargeting.
Okay, I'm going to expand on these individually because I think there's something to unpack. The first one is a human element to this. So Ali, Melissa, you both mentioned some aspect of the team, whether it's headcount in a quantitative sense or trading. So that to me suggests that we see obviously the immense value, which is obvious, of having our team. But if I was answering that question, I'd think about things I don't need to cut because I can improve on them through process like training. So I guess from a quantitative or labor perspective, it'd be interesting to understand how you're looking to optimize the team you have. And this is broad, it doesn't have to be OSCs, but from a marketing team perspective or an upskilling perspective, are there any initiatives you're currently working on to help with that? Any experiments we've tried and failed? And what does that training look like? Because I'm sure you guys are all busy and not necessarily have the time to sit down and do workshops every week or whatever it might be. But from a team training perspective, are there any initiatives you currently do? Anything you're looking to implement for the next year or so?
So for me, formal training for our teams is important, and it's something that we continually talk about. And we have our sales team, we have a VP of sales and then 2 regional sales managers. So they're continually doing regular trainings with the sales team. And the reason I fall back on training is just because, and then again, this is that, like, what are the 2 things you're not going to cut? Realistically, if I'm asked to cut 20%, I'm still going to keep a healthy mix of everything I've got going on. I'm just going to scale it back. So, but literally when asked not to cut 2 things, I think that how our teams knowing how to sell our product and knowing how to handle leads is really important, because I can go ahead and spend on driving more traffic and getting more leads. But if my team doesn't know how to convert them, then it's all for naught. So I think it's really important. And realistically, part of my answer comes from the fact that we're coming off of a lot of very busy years where sales hasn't, I'm trying to choose my words carefully. There's been a lot of people buying a lot of new homes, right? And if we missed out on one, there was someone else right behind them that would buy a home. That's not necessarily the market that I'm experiencing right now in Michigan and in Missouri. So people knowing how to sell when a lead comes across or when a person walks through their door is really, really important. So that's hence my answer.
Completely fair. Completely fair. Jamie, Ali, anything to add from your side? I've got a poll that I'm going to put into the channel shortly and answer some questions. But
I think there's also sometimes an instinct to cut your tech stack. And if you don't have the tech stack that helps your team align with the customers quickly or review the website in an authentic way to make sure it's performing, then all of the other marketing channels you're investing in is it's going to be wasted money. So that's another area where I think I wouldn't cut tech stack.
we've actually got a poll. So for folks watching, if you can click on that poll, the question is, what area is likely to see the biggest increase? So a slight difference to what we've been discussing in 2026. So budget. So conversely to Josh's question about cutting, if you had if you were to increase an area of your budget, what would it be? So we've got A, digital advertising, to paid search, whatever it might be. B, around website conversion optimization. C, CRM and marketing automation. And then D, customer experience. So we'll let the poll roll, and then we'll have a sense. Strong indications to begin with of people putting money into digital ads. To be expected, I guess, given market conditions, Melissa, as you've expressed, but maybe we can dig into why that might be or not be a great ploy. Few votes for optimization for website. I'll give it a couple of minutes and then we'll see where we're at. Moving on to, while we got that in the ether and going across there, I think moving on to your perspective, Melissa. So we talk about market conditions. How are you trying to stay competitive? What does that look like in the day of a life of Melissa, when you come into the start of the month in January and you're reporting back from 2025 and you're looking ahead to 2026, and hopefully it's going to get a little bit less challenging, but there are no sure bets in this industry, as we know. What's on your list to say this is what I need to nail to actually stay ahead or stay competitive?
So for those of you that I've talked with a lot, that I'm really big into sort of the tech end of home building, because we didn't have it until very recently. So it's been fun and challenging, and having all of this insight into our website traffic and our buyers and stuff that we didn't have 20, 25 years ago. I mean, I love thinking about what marketing used to be and what it is now, and how drastically different it is, and how different the buyers go about purchasing a home. So I'm constantly looking at what I'm presenting on my website from an interactive standpoint, what that experience is. Also, being from the Detroit area where it's all automotive here, my goal is to someday, we're not there yet. We're trying to get there. But I want my team to be able to go through and build their house online, have the visuals, print it off, and come in and talk to a salesperson, because that's how we all buy cars. You literally build it, you pick all of your options, you see your colors, it's gorgeous. And absolutely, I do still want to talk to a sales manager at the end. I go into the dealership, talk to a sales manager. So we're not quite there yet. My team can go online and play with their interactive floor plan, pick their home site. They can pick their structural options. They can pick their exterior colors, limited interior colors, but we're still missing like all of the design colors. We can't do the full thing. So just really enhancing that experience. But also, the part about staying ahead is introducing AI to the mix. I think AI is really starting to change very recently how our buyers search for homes. I mean, we're noticing it a little bit just through analytics, that they're not necessarily searching through browsers. They're starting to rely on the Claudes and the Chat GPTs to do their comparisons and sort of start doing the shopping for them. If you think about it, people historically had always had to go look for a builder and then see if they have good floor plan and the price pump in the area, where AI is taking that preparation. Then you just tell AI if you want, and it says, here's your data that fit this for you. And I think that we're going to have to figure out how to offer that experience to them on our websites as well, like have some of that AI interaction where they're not being forced to dig through our website to find stuff, and instead we're serving it up to them. So I think AI is going to change the game for us next year and even into future years.
That was a really comprehensive. I'm going to unpack a few elements of that shortly. While I've got the question fresh on my mind, I'm going to ask the other two, Ali, starting with you, and then Jamie on the what areas are looking to enhance for 2026. And then I'm going to dig into your answer, Melissa, because I thought that was really interesting. And yeah, certainly some discussion points there. So Ali might have got my question, but the initial question was, how are you looking to stay ahead in 2026? What are you guys doing? What initiatives are you launching?
Yeah, our biggest focus for 2026 is a website redesign. We're working on building a more visual and intuitive experience that gives buyers the information that they're looking for up front, and possibly pull in some of those AI elements or even just like dynamic content to pull either communities or products that match what their search intent is to the forefront so that they can find that a lot easier. And on the marketing side, we're leaning a lot more into automation and automated bidding and shifting our budgets towards channels that are driving appointments rather than impressions.
I think the website design is an interesting one, but everyone's touched on in separate ways this visual element to the buying journey becoming more pronounced and having that encompassing journey. Melissa, you talked about customizing to the extent of colors on the wall, wherever it might be, and then we've got the visual content from Ali and the website, tying those things together. Jamie, does that echo how you guys are looking to optimize for 2026, or are you going down a different route from Kolter's perspective?
I think that the buyer trend we're noticing is that it's a very comparison-driven buyer. So whether they're using AI or your website or reviews or Reddit, you have to build brand authority so that you're showing up in these spaces where they're researching, and then also save them time with the comparisons so they can easily compare you to your peers. The builder that can help their customers find the information to compare faster, it's going to reduce the buying decision time for those buyers.
And Melissa, we have a question based on your answer, which I thought we would, and I'm going to unpack it a bit more, but everyone's spoken about AI. What specifically how are we looking to leverage it from the perspective of the website and the website journey? Is there anything you already got your kind of finger on to implement, or is it more just we're still in this research phase to try and enhance process, and we're still open to finding the best route?
So like Ali said, we're actually working on introducing a new website after the first of the year. And it's not something that will be immediately available when that launches, but we are looking at adding, the team I'm working with is looking at adding an AI shopping assistant to the website. So much like someone goes to ChatGPT or Claude or whomever to kind of, this is what I'm looking for, and that information is searched up for you. That ability would be on the website to do that same thing. So rather than having to go into the website and click through it and click into each individual community and do the searching, you would work with the Lombardo Homes shopping assistant, who has not been named yet, and they would help enhance your experience. And in theory, you talk about your lifestyle, and they would be able to, based on your lifestyle questions, answer, here's what matches that. Or if you were even specific, I am looking for a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home in these areas, rather than digging through and seeing if we've got it, AI is going to tell you like what it is and serve that up to you. So it's funny, as you dig into this, I've really realized over the years how difficult we've really made it for our buyers to come to buy a home from us. Like they've had to do so much research, and they've had to find us, and they've had to find what fits. Now, again, those are the only options we had, right? AI came into the field and really changed the game. But when you look at now how how AI has changed it and the things that we can do with it, you realize how difficult we've made it in the past for our customers to really be able to find what they're looking for.
I'd agree. I think Josh, another question from Josh here, which relates to that, is suggesting that AI is helping the guys as a mentor builder, but they're helping the team, but they're really struggling to get budget approval. So as larger builders from you guys on the panel, do you adopt tech proactively or reactively? And do you think the sentiment needs to shift?
There has to be a need for something in order to invest in it. So the first step is to identify the trends. And sometimes that means you have to invest in tools that help you identify the trends. So it could be just an unlimited cycle there. And there's like kind of two layers of AI, because there's that like AI shopping assistant, but then there's also making sure that your website and your content is visible in all of the AI searches. So there's a whole other, layer of it. So your website has to serve as the hub for people searching, but it also has to serve as the hub for AI searching for answers. So it's a lot of layers to it.
We actually just had a really good question that came through on as you were speaking, which was, as Google leans harder into AI-powered products, do you expect your budget for next year to favor automated systems like PMax or more transparent, controllable campaigns? That's a very thoughtful question. Thank you, April. Does anyone have any concrete answers? I'm not expecting you to, but if there's any insight we can share, I think that would be helpful in this example.
I can take that one. We do not plan on changing our budget strategy for like Google or anything. We plan on keeping our ads the same way. What we are planning on doing is really investing in schema and structured data, which is like the back end of your website, what you're sending to Google to be read. We are kind of really leaning into AIO and SEO to do the work for us. We're not having to pay to appear in those searches.
You just got a ton of heart reacts to that answer, Alan. So I think April was grateful for that. I'm going to move on slightly. I'm conscious of time. I haven't got too much, but the questions have been great from the audience. So continue to get them through, and we'll try and push through as many as we can. I think one question I'd like to ask, and this is related to budget, but slightly different. If there was a initiative or an under the radar investment that you've made in the last 12, 18 months to support with these initiatives, to support with staying competitive and everything else we discussed, what would that look like?
I have a weird one.
Go for it.
Investing in direct mail.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We discussed it briefly yesterday. I love it. Yeah, let's the end to it. What does that look like? How is it?
Usually people, let's send out postcards. I think everybody knows that that's kind of at this point a little bit on the dead side because it's just a lot of waste. But if you're incorporating direct mail in a way to retarget and incorporating it into a multi-touch strategy, see higher rebrowse rates and driving first visits. So we've invested in some direct mail marketing.
Fascinating. Well, we try to do the same tactics from us, even with our marketing initiatives. We find even from a B2B perspective, frankly, having something that differentiates you from someone else is super powerful. So it's interesting how we see the commonalities across. And I know several of our partners have also tried some of the things, particularly from a retargeting perspective. So, when someone's registered for an upcoming community and then 6 months later not being able to reach out to, whatever it might be, having something that really grabs their attention in that moment can be really powerful and remind them of that initial thought process.
Well, and I feel like we came full circle, Jamie. I love that you said that because we've done mailers recently, and I felt like, the 2000s called, and I didn't think I'd ever be in that place again where you're putting labels on cards and sending them out. But for more of targeting apartments and that. But we've kind of come full circle. If you remember, it used to be mailers, and then like this revolutionary thing called email came out, and no one was mailers anymore because everyone was responding to email. And now we all know that we've got our throwaway email accounts where you register that address, no one looks at it, no one checks anything. And realistically, that's where a lot of our builder emails are going. And it's kind of, gravitated to text. But also when you're dabbling in that direct mail is getting a response again. And I think it's gotten to the point where, yes, there has to be strategy behind it, but we're also not getting mail anymore. We're not getting those piles of junk mail. It's more like, if something came in the mail for me, your response, which, years and years ago, it had stopped getting a response, much the way we struggle with getting those email opens today.
Mm-hmm.
Ali, what about you guys? And from your perspective, anything you can kind of recall or think of that has been more influential or powerful than you expected, or?
Yeah, I would say user-generated content, specifically reviews on public sites. That does so much of the legwork for AIO and SEO, and a lot of people are looking at the reviews before they look at a lot of the products. So if people are seeing like that there's negative sentiment on Reddit, for example, they're going to find that before they find the product that they like for the builder.
I find it fascinating that in this conversation, we spoke about direct mail, which is a tactic from 50 years ago, to people searching on Reddit. I mean, that's the full, and that was encapsulate everything about the modern buyer. I don't know what does. We've actually got a slightly different question, but in relation to the topic here, which is Jody asks, I'd really like to know what internal roadblocks slows innovation in your marketing teams. Is it budget, bandwidth, IT, or leadership buy-in? That's a great question. So thank you for that. One I'd also like to know the answer to. So yeah, I don't know if anyone can cut that. Can have a shot at that one.
Bandwidth. There's so many ideas and so little time.
It's bandwidth for us as well. We have an incredible IT team, an incredible leadership team that's always supporting new initiatives. There's just not enough of us to get it done.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to answer differently and say that to some degree, I think I don't know if leadership would be the answer, but I do still notice that there is a struggle. And I have to say that in a lot of ways, I've been very well supported, but a lot of the things when it comes to innovation, it starts out with marketing doing something fun. And I really have to prove, what its impact is and why it's necessary and what the end goal is going to be, because I struggle with that sort of colored pencil mentality. Like marketing's got their colored pencils out again and they want to color something. Like it's not just fun, cool tools. It really does impact our customer and it really does impact our business. And I find myself really having to show that in order to get everyone to buy into the innovation. Change, right? And change is hard. So sometimes it can be hard to effect change.
What does that buy-in look like though, from a team perspective? When you have an initiative, we have an idea, and you think, okay, I believe this is going to deliver X or Y impact. How do you normally structure the conversations? So I think we're getting a lot of chatter in the question section around how we actually convey the value of an idea or a service or a product to our peers. How do you guys normally approach that? Because it can be challenging if you're asking for more money or you're asking for IT bandwidth and IT resource. Sometimes you're going to get palmed off. So how do you, when you really value something and you want to prioritize it, how do you convey that internally?
Realistically, it's whatever data I can have that backs it up. I mean, my leadership team is very data driven. They're all, pest controllers. So numbers and stats are important. So being able to identify the problem that it's going to solve or, what it's going to fix or help. And then obviously putting data towards that, how much it's going to cost, how much time it's going to take, how much bandwidth it's going to take internally to make it happen, and then what the return is going to be on it, whether it's improved customer experience or it's going to be a certain, literal ROI where we're going to, save money or make money. But it is kind of tying all of those things together. So it's not just, Because I mean, let's face it, realistically, anything I bring to the table, it's all fun and cool, right? So you need to make it more than fun and cool. It needs to be shown as a fundamental like business strategy. And that's usually through the data.
Yeah, I think the assumption is that marketing is more narrative driven than operational driven. And when it comes to asking for more money or, making changes, you can't come to the table with a narrative. It has to be, this is the need, this is the opportunity, and this is the cost if we don't do this.
Ali, what are your thoughts to the echo?
Absolutely. Our team is very data driven as well, and we do a really good job of tracking it, but there's still room for improvement there. So just finding as many metrics as possible that could possibly relate to the initiative, the better.
Perfect. I'm conscious of time. We're going to round off in a short few moments, but I'd like to cover a couple of other outstanding items. So we've got 2 polls to reflect on that I want to get your thoughts on, and then I've got some hot takes that I'd like your opinion on for 2026. So the first poll, interestingly, to the question of what areas like to see the biggest increase in your budget spend for 2026, we had digital advertising at number 1, website and conversion optimization number 2, CRM marketing automation as the third option. And then for the question of which we'll dig into, what feels like your biggest marketing challenge heading into 2026, we've got generating qualified leads at 20%, tracking ROI at 40%, online conversion rate, we haven't had any votes for that, and then managing your budget conflicts. So let's unpack a couple of those if we may, and then we'll reflect on our predictions for 2026. So really broad question. It's going to be quick fire. If your biggest challenge was generating qualified leads, what would you be doing for 2026? Just 2-3 lines. What would you be doing if that was your one challenge you had? Nothing else mattered. Just that one problem. What would it be?
I would be adding additional qualifiers to the forms that we're asking for. So maybe asking what their budget is and only providing a certain range to kind of like filter out those that aren't qualified, or just asking just additional questions. That typically solves it for us.
Exactly.
Perfect. I'm going to slip on to next one, which is tracking ROI attribution. It sounds like this is a tricky one. Unless you're obviously saying that a lot of the decisions that are being made need to be backed up by data, but we still have gaps in this workflow. Jamie, I'm going to point this one to you. If you were just trying to fix the ROI issue or attribution issue, what would you be focusing on? What would that tendency go about?
Finding tools that help connect your CRM data with your analytics data, because that's the only way you'll be able to have a true attribution model that helps you understand that, yes, this person did click on a Facebook ad. They just didn't fill out a form. They just came straight in because your website gave them what they needed to know. They wanted to see the community in person. So connecting those two is going to be huge for everybody in 2026, but it's also a big pain point, I think, for marketers in our space.
Perfect. Ali, you're on to see, and this is probably slightly naughty of me, but if you were just trying to improve your conversion rate on your website, what would your activity look like? What would you be doing?
I would ABCD test everything you can. It could be as simple as just changing like the color of a button, and that can help drive conversions, or just like pulling up the form like higher on the page.
And then last one, if you were trying to, Melissa, I don't want to keep coming back to you on this one, but if you were trying to manage budget constraints, or you were trying to, I don't know if the question here is whether we're looking to get more budget or just trying to manage the constraints, how would you be approaching that? How would you be?
So I actually had this. I'm glad I got this question to respond to. I actually had my DP come to me in June and tell me I had to cut my budget by 10%. And I literally track every single thing, which seems daunting. But if there's one thing I can say, I track my spend. I track what's been paid versus what's still out there for accruals. I can literally talk to any overage or underage I have by cost code by month. So when that conversation happens, we had a follow-up conversation where I led with especially in the softening market, this isn't the time to cut. It's the time to spend. But I had all of my backup, literally what I had spent, where I had spent it at, and then combined with my ROI report of what's working and what isn't. I was actually able to come back, and not only did I not have to cut my budget, but I got a little bit more money. But there's something to be said about like Jaime said earlier, you can't just go ask for money. A narrative never works. You have to have the backup. And I know it feels really tedious if you're not already doing it, but if you can sit down and get yourself set up where you're actually tracking your spend, it's going to help you in the future. Every single time you have to have one of these conversations about budgets or budgets being cut or working within a constraint or asking for more money.
We had a lot of love for that answer. So I think that was perfect according to the audience. I'm going to round off with some hot takes. Before I do, just for the audience's benefit, the CommvVersion, we're releasing an industry insights report in January. This is based on over 1 billion website interactions, sessions, anonymized data that we've got that we're presenting to give you a sense of how websites are performing, what the engagement should look like, and some challenges we're seeing with website performance. So if that's of interest to you, we'll be releasing that in January to anyone that registers. It's completely free, but that'll be an industry insights report specific to website performance analysis that hopefully will be helpful for folks listening in. But final question from me. This has flown by, so thank you for the questions and obviously to our fantastic panel. But let's just start with let's finish with a prediction, which is, what bold prediction are you comfortable making about the 2026 buyer journey and home building industry? Two questions in once, but essentially, what bold prediction we make about A, the customer journey, and B, about the industry more broadly? And I'm going to ask everyone, so no shouting away.
I would say that AI will become the first stop for home shopping in general. Buyers will increasingly just ask AI to recommend communities or floor plans, and the builders that structure their content accurately will be the winners in that space.
Perfect.
Yeah, I agree with Allie in that I think AI is going to be sort of what really changes things in this next year for the industry. From a builder standpoint, I'm going to say that, this is kind of, I don't know if it's bold, it might be a little bit boring, but I don't think it's going to be the builders who are the loudest that are going to get the attention and the leads and the clients. It's going to be the builders who are the clearest online and are presenting all of their information. Like right now, that's what the buyer's looking for, something specific. So it's not going to be the bold messaging and the incentives. It's going to be the clarity on the site, them finding exactly what they're looking for when they're researching. So I think that the clarity over the promotions is going to win out.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to use the word help. Clarity is a great word. I think helpful is another word to describe that. And my prediction is that we're going to see more be-backs from the first visit to contract cycle. So builders should define a micro funnel to see what is driving those be-backs so that they can help their customers and add clarity to the process. So I think my hot take would be tracking your be-backs and what drove in the be-backs. Is it a confidence? Is it they need more information that wasn't given on the first visit, and how can you reduce that cycle?
Perfect. Well, to our panel, thank you so much for joining us on this afternoon session. I thought that was fantastic, and we had a lot of engagement from the audience and responses to your explanations, which is fantastic. I'd like to thank you once again. Really great hosting you and for everyone tuning in. This was brought to you by CommvVersion, the leading builder engagement optimization platform. If you'd like to find out more information, you can also do so via email or via LinkedIn. We'd love to ascertain how you guys are doing and some things you're looking to optimize. Thank you for everyone, and have a great rest of your Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you.
The end.
Thank you. Thank you.